And welcome back to Dr. Drill's Making Motivation podcast, where it is our mission to honor interesting and authentic people, tell their stories, and in the process, we're trying to put a little smiles on faces, maybe a little fire under the asses of the masses, make you think, make you laugh. And it's great, my friends. Today is Sunday, March 10th, 2024. At 10:00 hours, I got my buddy Shawn from back in the block. Okay, we grew up together in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. We're going to talk all about that. And we also served in the United States Marine Corps at the same time. So we're going to talk about those two elements, are coming up in the world, where we're at now, and of course, always track this back to motivation. Shawn, can you tell the listener what motivates you?
These days, it's just trying to be, I think, just a little bit better each day. Just being a better person.
That's good. How's your progress on that?
It's been great. This last year has just been a really big year for me, I guess, a good year.
Yeah, so I can see it, man. You look great.
Thanks. Feeling good.
Yeah, man. So a little context for the listener. Shawn and I grew up in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. I believe we met in the 6th grade. I was thinking about that driving down here this morning.
Mr. Rasper's class.
Mr. Rasper's class. Yeah, baby. I was going to pull out a picture. You know that the one I'm thinking about where it's you and me in the back, and then there's a girl named Sherry, and she was a real character.
Oh, yeah.
Sherry Roberson. She was in the back there.
Right.
Sherry Wright.
Sherry. Yeah.
I remember Sherry Roberson. Yeah, I fucked that one up. So Sherry Wright, she was in the back. Anyway, Mr. Rasper's class, I remember had some sort of friggin' checkered buff check flannel on there, little skinny bastards that we were. So we grew up, we've been in the 6th grade, we remain great friends to this day. For the majority of the tremendous and sometimes crazy memories of my youth, Shawn was always on the scene. Upon high school graduation, Shawn would also join the Marine Corps, where he served an enlistment with 2nd Marine Recon Battalion. And while serving, I screwed this story up. Shawn had to keep me straight on it. But there was a buddy. Shawn moved from the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, Ocean County, and wound up going out to visit a friend and wound up staying in the Midwest. And that's where he's at right now. Loves it. And tell us a little bit about that story, because I didn't get that straight, Shawn. How'd you wind up out?
How I ended up here?
Yeah.
Well, I guess, gotten out of the Marine Corps, and was still kind of just trying to find my way. I think I had a different expectation, or just a high expectation of how things were to go and how things were back in home of record. And I don't know. I came back just, after traveling and just being in that fast-paced environment. I came back and I was just kind of like, this isn't it, It inevitably kind of left me, I just didn't really know where I wanted to be. Just wasn't really happy with the way things were in that area, and just kind of had to make a move. Got in touch with some Marine buddies, and people, I was interested in the West Coast. It seemed like kind of a more suitable, more with what I was looking for. And, made some connections and whatever. And they said, yeah, come on out, man. Some old Marine buddies. And this was, they were in Colorado. Oh yeah, there's plenty of work out here, whatever. So it's all right. Well, I'm heading west. One of my best friends, actually, I had 2 really, really close friends from my Marine Corps days. Coincidentally, both of them were from here in Metro Detroit, Michigan. I said, well, I can't head west and not see my buddy Jay. Well, stopped here to see Jay, and 26 years later, I'm still here. Never made it to Colorado.
You never made it to Colorado?
Never made it.
That's pretty cool, man.
Just ended up here. I left a casino job. I was, actually, I think you and I were kind of, we were doing the college National Guard thing at that time.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I forgot about yeah.
Yeah, I was in there for a hot second, and then I was just like, yep, I'm out. But started working in the casino and was going to college at the time and whatever. But when I left Jersey, last thing I did was quit my job in Atlantic City. And when I got here, they just started hiring for a casino that was opening in Detroit. My buddy just kind of was like, "Hey, you worked in a casino, throwing it up, see what happens here." Here I am.
Dude, that's crazy. Now that you're saying that, I remember those days. I did not write that down on my little outline here, but I remember, of course, serving. Well, feeling the same way. You know what I mean? I think that to the listener, especially to the viewer, when you're serving when you're in the service, whatever your branch, but we were Marines, and when you're away from home, first of all, military towns suck ass. And so, but when you're serving, you're like, man, can't wait to go home this weekend. So we would drive at high rates of speed in the middle of the night just to get home and get a taste of home. When you show up at home in your little hometown, a lot of people comparatively didn't have shit going on. So they would celebrate you and, oh, it's great. And maybe you got a friends or a girlfriend there and you're treated like a freaking John Rambo or some shit, like, so, and then you think, oh man, when I get out, I can't wait to get out. I'm just going to go right back to where I started, where my story began. And I'm going to put down roots. And, you're never, even though I'm going to say a lot of flattering things about where we grew up and there's no place like home to a degree. It's also important that we don't put down roots right away, especially when we were young. So to go explore a little bit and other options and shit like that, that's cool. But I remember when we were in the National Guard, so we get off active duty Marine Corps and we joined the Guard, which was offering, the Marine Corps gave us this fucking, I don't know, seemed like it was not a lot of money in terms of GI Bill. So then we learned that we could join the New Jersey National Guard and get 12 free credits per semester for showing up. And I think they even gave us a bonus for joining this grunt unit. And of course, compared to what we did, it was a freaking joke, but it was also kind of a pain in the ass to be around that. Having gotten out.
Yeah, it was strange.
Yeah, to the listener, I mean, and no offense to anybody who serves in the reserves or whatever, but when you serve an active duty, especially in the Marines, you're out there training all the time. Everybody's in shape. Most people are tactically proficient. And then back then, the reserves were kind of known for being really fucking cheesy and bunch of older dudes with big pot bellies and stuff. And we were but anyway, we did it for the benefits, and we were involved in that for a while. But I forgot about that you were in that unit as well.
Yeah, it was brief. It was only I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. I remember I left. We did we had the 2-week drill. We were at Fort Drum.
Yeah.
And I somehow convinced them to let me leave early after like a week, so I could go on tour. And follow Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead. Yeah,
they were pretty. They're pretty cool. They were pretty. Like, I remember because I did 3 years there, but then when it was time for me to go to school, I was like, hey guys, I'm not going to be here next year. I'm going to whatever. And they just kind of off the roster. I remember they would kind of almost do this thing where they were like, they didn't want to give you too much shit because they're having a full roster meant something like, hey, this is our strength, government. If we don't say we have this many people on the roster, then they're not going to give us, they're not going to give us our resources or whatever. So they weren't too fucking, they didn't hit you too hard if you, no. Decided that wasn't for you or you needed a weekend off or whatever. But it served its purpose. I thought that was a pretty damn good deal. That's what I feel like is on par. Like when it comes to education and the military, shit. You tell me I'm going to sign up for this comparatively cheesy ass training where we're not really going to do nothing too crazy. And we didn't ever thought we could deploy, right? But now, of course, all these, since the war on terror, they're all reserve units that have So you can't say that the reserves are anything less than stellar in terms of their readiness.
Yeah, it's a different time now than 1998.
Yeah. But now I remember that. So you reminded me of something. That's awesome. Remember you're part of that. So yeah, so all I know is you wound up there in Detroit. I also remember going down to visit you one time at, I don't know, the whatever the fuck it was, the Tropicana or wherever you were doing work there. Were you working security at the time?
Oh yeah, Valleys. Yeah. Briefly, yeah. I don't remember you coming to visit.
What's that?
I don't even remember that, but that's. I mean,
yeah. I did that for a while. Security. I'm sure you got a lot more action in the Valleys, but
they moved me out of there real quick and put me upstairs where I was kind of doing some stuff, like running things up there.
That's cool.
It was. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I like the environment stuck with me though. The casino environment, and to this day, it still kind of gets my juices flowing, even though I'm not a gambler.
That's awesome, dude. I'd like to talk about a little bit about that. So you wind up in the Midwest. You're living outside of Detroit. But I want to talk a little bit about that because I friggin' for the viewer, I had never been to the Midwest. And one of my frustrations about, having served, we went to all these cool places in the world, like we went to, deployed and pulled into Europe and pulled into Asia and did all these cool, stopped and went to Rome, went to Bethlehem, all this shit. But there's a lot of cool places in the States that I really hadn't seen and still haven't to this day. But I wound up, a family member bought a place on a lake in Michigan. And I went out there and I was like, wait a second, isn't my buddy Shawn out here? And so I texted him the one time, told him we were coming out. We linked up. And then last year we linked up, had a little lunch. And so I friggin' love Michigan, just being, there's something unique about it. And it's my favorite vacation every year. And so I always try to, if Shawn's around, I always try to link up with him. So it was nice seeing you last year, buddy.
Yeah, it's always good. I mean, not too many people I'll drive 3 hours to go have lunch with, but and that's any excuse. Yeah. Oh yeah. And any excuse really to get to that side of the state. It's gorgeous over there. Trace and I really like going.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had that experience over there though. I mean, it's cool to hear. I mean, Michigan is a pretty great place.
Oh my God. Again, maybe it's I'm sure it's similar like anywhere. I know I met some people that are some locals there and they're like, oh, you live over by the Jersey Shore or you live over by Philadelphia. What are you here for? And so if you're there, it's like, it's the town that I go to is called Holland, Michigan. And it's a very cool little lakefront town with neat shops and restaurants and shit. And just the hospitality's different. People just always seem to be happy. I'm sure it's part of it's that I'm on vacation when I go there, but I mean, I'm going first place I go to this little fucking place. And I get, it's like a 5 and dime. They get all the food and everything. I get a friggin' biggest can of friggin' night crawlers that I can get and all my tackle and shit like that. And I sit on the dock and I'm just in heaven, I crack open a beer and I'm looking out into the lake and it's just absolutely beautiful. For anybody who's never been to Michigan, I've never been to the Upper Peninsula either. I know that that's friggin' awesome, right?
I mean, it's remote. You like wilderness? If you like wilderness, absolutely, yeah. But UP is unreal. Yeah,
fucking. It makes me think of the movie The Great Outdoors with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. That's my experience kind of sort of out there. We're on boats. We got friggin', my aunt, she'll rent a boat. It'll be like a speedboat. We'll go tubing. Then we'll do a big pontoon boat with a slide. And then we're going out and eating and walking around. I'm like, man, is the grass greener here? Are the people nicer here? Or is it just I'm fucking on vacation? I don't know. But it's cool.
The people are nice here.
People are nice. So let's talk about let's rewind. Talk about I have this theme called surf and skate. So growing up, I remember meeting you for the first time, Shawn. I believe we were sitting at Mr. Rasser's class, obviously, but I remember sitting at a lunchroom table in 6th grade and everybody hanging out in this pecking order, the 2 elementary schools coming up and then everybody's under one roof in 6th grade and the middle school. And we got people coming in and out and everybody's trying to figure out what group they're in. But you and I met and became pretty close around skateboarding and around bodyboarding, surfing, shit like that. I remember you introduced me to some music, like maybe Dead Kennedys and remember the Search for Animal Chin, the fucking video with the skate video with Tony Hawk and all those guys.
Yeah.
You know, tell me about your what kind of role was skateboarding and surfing play in your upbringing?
Man, I mean, it was a huge part of my childhood. It's funny because being here in Michigan, it's definitely something that's in the rearview mirror. Unfortunately, I mean, I definitely would like to get back in the water at some point here, but even talking about that stuff here, people look at me like, "You're from New Jersey. What are you surfing? What?" But yeah, it was a huge part of my growing up. I spent a lot of time at the beach, a lot of time, and when I wasn't at the beach, I was out in the street, popping ollies on curbs and, making ramps with the kids in the neighborhood and, that sort of thing. But yeah, it was one of those things that to me, it was very healthy. Something, like skateboarding where you had to put in the work and keep trying things, even though you kept failing and, hurt yourself or whatever. But, you want to learn this trick and you just keep going. That would kind of maybe set the tone for a lot of stuff in my life.
Yeah. What was your favorite skateboard deck? Remember?
Oh man, I went through a bunch of different phases, but I was like a really big fan of Christian Hosoi when I was a kid. I really liked his whole everything about him. But yeah, I had a bunch of his skateboards when I was growing up.
Yeah, I remember my favorite was probably a Rob Roscop Santa Cruz board. Remember that on the underside they had
the artwork.
Yeah, artwork was friggin' unbelievable.
The hand with the
little stamp on it, and then different types of trucks and different types of wheels. I remember the big Independent was a big trucks that all the professionals had, and then I got those Gull Wings. That they were all right, but and now boards are all skinny.
Yeah,
isn't that weird?
I mean, it's the sport has really, I mean, since that time, I don't know. I mean, I would have to talk to some people that, still skate and stuff. But that time was like a really interesting time in skateboarding. You look at it now and it's like, to me, it blows my mind what these people do with skateboards. It seems like impossible.
Right.
Compared to the stuff that was, I mean, there was, definitely a high level of things going on, but definitely not as technical as it is now. I think the equipment now kind of lends to that too. But I mean, it's really progressed since, the late 80s, early 90s.
How are we old school, right? You watch those old videos of when they were on the friggin' tiny ass friggin' Walmart boards doing all this shit like surf style, and you watch some of the documentaries, and then all the boards are big, and now that anyway, we are fucking old school. That was a thing. I remember that always being a thing with everything I ever did, whether it was old core, whether it was old, hey, we used to skate, we used to do this. But I remember friggin' talk about making ramps and shit with the neighborhood kids. Our town was growing, right? There's a lot of development, and all those construction sites, all the many construction sites, had a lot of missing friggin' plywood and 2x4s. Making friggin' quarter pipes and half pipe. I remember me.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get fucking Rocco on this podcast at some point. Me and Rocco made. I remember we made this thing. It looked like something that they would have a kumite on. It was like it had no vert on it at all. We put it in his backyard.
I think I remember this.
Yeah. So remember it was like this, and I remember it was like a Frankenstein's monster of fucking of ramps, but it was big, and we friggin' looted a construction site for that purpose. But I remember his sister. She's like, I want to skate. And I was like, okay, we're holding her, and then she, okay, let go. And she did it. She wiped out and she broke her arm. And I fucking picked her up, and I was like the hero of the day. All right, let me get up on track there. So skating, friggin' hanging out, skateboarding, doing ollies, trying new moves, busting our ass. The culture, skateboarding is not a crime. You know, it was pretty cool to be involved in that growing up. I remember we did a lot of that. I was going to ask you something. Oh, tell a story of Joey Tooth Scraper.
Man, so yeah, I mean, this kind of all ties together with what you're just saying. We had this giant quarter pipe that we made in the cul-de-sac in my neighborhood. And back in those days, actually, there was like dirt roads and all this stuff, and Lacey was kind of like, yeah, small town, you know. But we had this. We just erected this probably, I don't know, I'd say 6 or 7 feet tall quarter pipe and put it in a cul-de-sac that was like had one house in it. Nobody said anything, you know. We just that's what it was. So we had a lot of kids in the neighborhood. Like everybody like skated or rode bikes and whatever. So it was kind of like a communal thing. Well, and we got this. Somebody had a moped, and what they would do is grab onto the back of this moped, and they would, you know, go running right at this ramp, and at the last second turn off, let go, and then you would go up and do your little trick or whatever. Well, this Joey Tooth Scraper fella, he he came from another nearby neighborhood and came over, wanted to ride the ramp, and hey, yeah, no problem, you know. So he watches us kind of do our thing, and we've been, you know, been at it for a little while, so some of us were, you know, kind of all right at it. Well, this guy went up and you know, gets on the back of the moped, thing takes him up, goes up. I don't know what happened. Board went flying, but he came down face first, slid all the way down, arms behind his back, and his teeth right on the street, right on the blacktop. And there was actually like a little white line. Blood on his face.
That's fucking terrible.
Yeah.
That is terrible, but it's awesome simultaneously.
Yeah. I mean, that was, yeah. We were tough kids, you know?
We were tough kids. I mean, I don't remember. That's the thing. Tough kids. I mean, I don't remember anybody. I didn't do a lot of ramps and shit, but nobody was wearing fucking helmets. Nobody was wearing knee pads or any of that shit. Maybe if you were doing ramp stuff, but it was pretty. And it's BMX and motocross. I mean, I know you were riding dirt bikes and stuff. I had my quad. That's some of the cool shit that I remember around growing up in the Pines, is like, you know, being able to go out. There's a lot of resources. There's a lot, and I'm going to address that now, because a lot of people, they assume when they hear New Jersey, they're thinking the Jersey Shore, you know, the media portrayal of this small but populous state. They also judge it by the turnpike with the smokestacks and all that shit. We grew up in a place where it was next. I'm talking about fellow Piney. Pine Barrens Preserve is however many acres that cannot be touched. It's all scrub pines. So like pine trees, maybe 30, 40 foot high, really stacked in there. Sugar sand, beautiful, pristine creeks that circulate through there. And I just read the other day that there's an aquifer that has like untold amounts of fresh water that is actually underneath the pines. It's a vast aquifer. I think it's one of the biggest in the country of fresh water. So,
oh, wow.
I did not know that, but I learned of that. So it was a pretty cool place to grow up. There's a lot of open spaces, a lot of friggin' canoe trips, you could take your dirt bike or your BMX bike out into a sand pit. You know, that there were a lot of mining. Well, we don't mine coal or rock, gravel. We grow stone and sand, you know, it's just sugar sand. So all the sand that people use for construction and concrete and all that shit, it all comes from those areas. And so from the mining operations, there would be holes in the ground and piles of friggin', you know, of sand and stone. And we would fucking ride those bastards with our ATVs and our dirt bikes. And I like to take dirt bombs. A dirt bomb was like a fresh, let's say we got a construction site and some new earth that's been dug up and piled to the side. A dirt bomb was like wet, moist earth that had turned, you know, kind of dried out. And so you could throw it and be like a grenade. And if you hit somebody or a car or another person, it would kind of fucking dirt bombs, cedar swamps, right? the bay, the Barnegat Bay, fishing, crabbing, boating, all that cool shit, and of course nearby Long Beach Island. So this is a great place to grow up.
Really was.
So, yeah, it's pretty great. So I always would say, like, I had this one guy that I served with, and he was from the Deep South, and he said to me, he goes, what's your motto, Oberst? What's your state motto? The Garden State? That's a trash state, son. That's a trash state. And yeah, so fucking yeah, we grew up in a pretty cool place. So let's talk about you're a great friend, many memories with you and the other guys hanging out. Fucking, let's talk about one of my new themes is characters about town. So these are the people, to the viewer. Characters about town is like that person everybody knows, but nobody knows the true story on them. They might be a little strange, and everybody sees them, and everybody. As interesting as the characters is our judgment and perception of what's going on in their life. Like I just was talking to Shawn before we started rolling, because we make up shit. You know? So before we started rolling, I told Sam or Shawn, Sam's my son, about there's a person who walks around this town that I'm sitting in right now, Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and you can see her. Everybody sees her as they drive and commute through the center of town or whatever. She does the same route again and again and again. And so people say, hey, what's going on with her? It's almost like a Forrest Gump scenario where you see Forrest, you're like, hey, you're that guy, right? Hey, why are you doing this? You know, can I join you? So I thought that's an example. The Lansdale Walker is an example of a character about town. Let's talk about some of the characters from our town growing up. You go.
Oh, no. See, well, I don't know. When you hit me with this the other day, I was kind of like I haven't thought about this stuff in forever. But yeah, so I was hoping to lean on you on this a little bit. But,
all right, let me start.
Yeah.
Let me start.
Go ahead.
All right. So this fucking, we had this guy. His name was Paul. And Paul was like probably a 30, 40, 50-year-old man. And he would always stop at the center of town. And he had a bike and he had a basket and it said Paul's Recycling. These are the days where you could get a little bit of money by recycling cans and shit and bottles. So he would make a little bit of money. That's what he would do. I believe he was on the spectrum. So he was basically a 50-year-old man with the mindset and the habits of someone our age. So we would see Paul, and there was this is real life, man. It was we're kids, we're stupid, we were kind of cruel sometimes. So the lore was, if you see Paul with his bike and his full of freaking trash things, it'll say, the cardboard sign says Paul's Recycling, and he would make these noises like he would go, and when he would ride his bike, he would bob his head like a pigeon or something, and he would see him cruising around, very methodical on his bike. And you'd wave to him if you were feeling like, hey, how you doing, Danny? Everybody said hello. Or, Paul. Or you would say, if you're feeling like a dickhead, which little boys do this shit, you'd say,
constantly,
Paul has no power. And if you said Paul has no power, that he would give chase, and you never know what the hell is going to happen to you if he gave chase. So, wasn't there something with you and Russell in the back of a? Yeah, you guys said Paul.
Yes, Paul has no power, and he gave chase on a ride mower, which wasn't much. It wasn't much of a chase, but in our minds, it was like.
Do you feel like he would have? Do you feel like he would have run you over?
No.
There was a sense that yeah.
What's that?
There might have been a sense that I remember the story was like, oh yeah, like there might be consequences. You say Paul has no power, he's going to fucking, you don't know. He doesn't like that.
Oh yeah.
He's what?
Maybe we thought he was kind of like a loose cannon, or maybe it was just a big mystery kind of,
Yes.
I think that might have.
Our judgment of it's our assessment, right? Another one. Well, wasn't there something with an officer? Wasn't it like Barbosa was like the cop that nobody wanted to be? He was known to be kind of cruel and unusual. Like I remember a story about if he saw you on your dirt bike in an unauthorized area, he would chase you, and almost like, did he hit somebody's back tire?
I remember a story where he maybe like took somebody's spark plug or something and made them push their bike all the way home from the power lines or something like that.
Yeah.
I never got caught.
Yeah.
That was always a fun thing too, like being in the woods and getting chased by police on motorcycles.
Yeah, you're like escaping, evading.
Real life dirt bike kid shit.
Yeah, a movie called The Dirt Bike Kid. We always fuck around and talk about that. Okay, so then we got Paul's Recycling. There was another one of the characters about town. They called her Smelling Helen. You got a Smelling Helen story?
Well, sort of. I mean, I remember the character. I don't remember too many interactions, but I will say that my mother-in-law's name is Helen. And so in our family, my niece calls her Uma. So most of the time, everybody calls her Uma for grandma or whatever. But when they do call her Helen, the first thing that pops in my head, or anytime I say that word, is Smelling Helen. Sorry, Mom. But so like it's weird. Like until you mentioned it, like I really thought about it much, but I think about it like whenever her name pops up. Oh yeah, Helen. I'm like, Smelling Helen.
Yeah, Smelling Helen. Yeah, well, she was
for the record.
He doesn't smell, but it's got a nice ring to it. That's one of those friggin' nicknames that it's a bummer, man, because it's so good that you can pull it out and you execute that. When we start talking about our Marine Corps days, I always that was one of the things, one of the stories that I told on that is about a guy who wanted to be called this, and then your nickname winds up being something really crueler than usual, But that's good. But so there's a couple other people. There's this guy that he was known as Moonhead. We called him Moonhead, and he was like this man always walking, and he had this pretty sizable head that was always like this. And so, who knows what the man's story was, but he was seen and he was judged, and not always in a positive light, which is terrible. But again, this is real shit, man. And then you got so I can smell this guy Carl, who always had a burlap bag with a 2x4 in it, and we would ask him to get us beer. Sometimes he was known for getting kids beer.
We hung out with him a few times, drinking beer at a very young age.
Yes, that's terrible, man. That's terrible.
Questionable decisions on our part. Like,
a lot of questionable decisions. A lot of questionable decisions, and a lot of the stuff. The shame about that sort of shit is that I'm glad some of that stuff happened for the memories, but now I have 2 teenage kids, and I'm like, don't do any of the shit that I do. Like my I won't go into that, but I always tell one thing that's pretty cool, at least with my area and with my kids. My son is 16. He just got his driver's permit. So, I told all of them, I said, listen, guys, don't do this shit. And it's serious business. You got your friggin' 2,000-pound machine, all this stuff. Or, if you're out there and you're at a party with friends, you have a beer or something like that, don't drive. Oh, I don't do any of that stuff. So they don't seem to be as interested as we were at a young age. The culture, especially with alcohol in the Pines, I always viewed coastal dwellers as pirates and that's an informed perspective, I feel like the people from what we grow up around and what we were and are still to a degree, we're like pirates, man. It's like, hey, what's going on out there? Hey, Shawn, did you hear that there's, like, I'm talking like 1700s, 1800s now. Hey, there's a ship that was bound for New York City that run ashore, and all its cargoes spilled out onto Long Beach Island. Hey, let's run down there and see what we can scurry. I feel like we're kind of like got piracy in our blood. What do you think about that?
Might be onto something. You might be onto something.
Coastal dwellers are like pirates, because there can be a sense with the beach life and all that stuff that it's an endless summer, and we live at the beach. We live at a place that everybody wants to be. And so it's party time. And so we did a lot of that. And I think both of us kind of throttled back, grew up, and I'm glad that we could say that. Got Carl. So there's another dude people reference called Jesus Johnny. He apparently had some sort of background where he had gotten some trouble and changed his ways. Jesus Johnny was always trying to share the Lord's word.
Oh, didn't he have like the car with all like the? Didn't he have a car with like flowers and stuff painted all over it?
Car was decked out.
Like the right.
Yes.
All right, I forgot all about that.
There's probably a lot more people that we could think about, but I love characters about town. I look for them. Like yesterday or earlier in the week, I think it was like Wednesday, I had a patient pull in here and said that like next door there's a house with all these tenants, and sometimes the tenants are good, sometimes they're fucking terrible. So he said he was pulling in, and he looked as he was turning. There's a woman that comes out of the apartment with completely naked, and she's not anything you want to see. She's not anything you want to take in, naked. And she was going to get her mail. And so she kind of looked at him like, that's fucking, that's disgusting. But I'm glad that happened, because then it's a little bit of feather in my cap. It's a story to tell. Yeah. So I always looking for these characters about town. And now, my friend, we have arrived at the moment where we're going to share with the listener, the viewer, the story about Lemmy.
Oh boy.
Yes. We need to get into this.
Yeah.
So Shawn was part and parcel of this. Let me lay the groundwork real quick. Okay. So growing up in our little town, I had my sister. She was 4 years my elder. And her first love was this freaking just terrible fucking guy. I mean, I love my sister dearly. She's doing very well now, but there was a time when she was young, and we all could say the same. Had some good relationships, had some bad relationships. I always felt like there could be 99 princes and one fucking turd, and for some reason she would wind up, becoming boyfriend, girlfriend with a turd. So this guy, handsome devil, blonde hair, kind of a James Dean, fucking leather jackets. He was, he was a pretty well muscled guy. We're going to call him Sal. Sal was, again, 4 years our elder, but he liked to hang out with myself, Shawn, and any of my buddies. I think because we were easy prey and he could kind of lead the pack. I think that because, whatever the fuck it was, the guy was a dickwad. And he was a very pathologic human being for my sister, for my family. There was a lot of fallout from that. And this is at a time where we were mostly latchkey kids. So like parents would go to work and, they'd come home, and after a long day, we were kind of wild. We'd do whatever the fuck we wanted. So, also, my parents had a place in the Catskills. That was their dream, to retire in the Catskills, and they have, and they're alive and well. But they would go up there and work on their campsites or their cabin and relax on the weekends and leave us in the care of my sister, which meant that we were under the care of Sal, and Sal was the fucking devil incarnate. So he was going to This is how I remember this night started, right? It's like a Friday night. Sal shows up with a freaking duffel bag full of 16-ounce Busch Light cans, piss warm. You remember that?
Not as specific, but yes, there was alcohol involved.
It's probable, right? So we start cracking these open. Yeah. We're like, oh, this is like freaking treasure. You know, let's have a couple of these piss warm beers. So we start having these beers. This goes on into the night. I remember like I passed out at some point and he started doing sadistic shit. Like I remember he put like a turkey baster of jalapeno juice in the corner of my mouth and did all kinds of shit like that. My sister and him got into a fight and she went to bed. And this is like, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And so way past bedtime. So Sal starts calling old girlfriends. And in the middle of the fucking night, he gets not his girlfriend, but his former girlfriend's mom. And the mom is like, hey, she's not here for the summer. She's actually in Europe or something, or, you know, but it's kind of late. Why are you calling, Sal? And he screws up his face and he kind of gets a little fucking twinkle in his eye. And he goes, well, I'm calling because I'm in trouble. My friend Lemmy. Now, Lemmy Kilmister, for the unaffiliated, Lemmy Kilmister is the band leader, God rest his soul, legendary band leader of the band Motorhead, right? So this woman doesn't know who the fuck Motorhead is, right? So he says, yeah, my friend Lemmy's having a tough time. His dad is a terrible, drunk, abusive guy. His sister's at home. You know, this goes on and on and on. They hang up, call back a few times. Yo, Lemmy's he's in trouble. Oh my God, what's going on? So then Shawn is tasked on the phone with being Lemmy. Go, Shawn. What was your recollection of this?
So, well, I mean, and one of the other things too is, you know, just from that time, and it's crazy to think about, but kids today will never know the joy of a prank call.
Yes.
You know, like that was a thing, you know, that was before caller ID. I mean, I feel old now, but yeah, I mean, like this was, you know, this was good stuff. And we basically had this lady on the hook for whatever reason. I don't know why, but you know, thinking that I'm this abused child and this and that. And turns out that this woman is a social worker. Is that right?
Yes. She was a social worker.
So, yes, naturally, she springs into action, you know, as far as, you know, how to react in these situations. We've got an abused child, blah, blah, blah. Got to get it from the home. And she starts making these arrangements to meet us, or to meet me, what was to be, you know, this abused child. And instead, we rolled you out there. I think you might not have like understood the full scope of the prank, because I think you might have been passed out for a little while. Is that accurate? Or
yeah, I think so. You guys were building this whole thing.
Yeah, and it kind of went through the night to the point where, you know, it was into the morning, like the sun had come up, and we walked down to the third lake, and you were supposed to meet this woman. I remember you were sitting on a lifeguard chair, and this woman was supposed to meet you, and you were going to have this conversation. I don't think you really knew what you were in for. And so she shows up, and we're observing this from the little park there. Right there by the lake, that small little park in the center there.
Yeah.
But we're watching this whole thing, and she walks up to the thing, and you can see you guys having some dialogue. And I just remember like hearing you saying like, I'm not Lemmy. That's not me, and whatever. So then me and Sal are on his moped and kind of take a cruise past the scene, and he yells out, "What's the matter, Lemmy? Your dad beat the shit out of you again?" And the lady was I think you had convinced her before that you weren't the person she was looking for, and she had kind of peeled off, was like walking away when that happened. And then she turned around and ran right back over there. I think you might have jumped down and ran away. And that's how it ended. So it was basically a 7-hour catfish. I guess that's what they call it now with the internet. Yeah, I mean, like we just kind of had this lady thinking this was this big, huge situation, which in retrospect, I mean, that's kind of screwed up.
It's terrible.
Well, we were kids.
It's terrible, and I, there's these tendencies. Again, I'm glad that happened because it's a tremendous story, but obviously, it's terrible to do that. But prank calls, yeah, this is before crank yankers, or this is before cell phones, and we have zero anonymity now. This is at a time when you could call anybody and you could pretend you were somebody else. And we did various degrees of prank calls. Hey, hey, how you doing today? I'm looking for my friend, Dick Hertz. You seen Dick Hertz? You hang up, kids hang up and fucking, isn't that funny? We had that guy on the loop. Well, this was freaking, as Shawn is saying, this is like an overnight thing. We got a woman. I have a woman in a little freaking commuter car parked in the lot of the lake with a clipboard. And for some reason, I thought it was like reasonable to go out there and be this guy. Like, what was I going to say to this woman as Lemmy? Like, if she shows up and the police are with her, thankfully they were not. I'm definitely drunk. I've got some alcohol in my system. And I was starting to sober up, and it was a late night and all that shit. We basically didn't go to sleep. And we said, yeah, I remember having convinced this woman, and she's like, oh, okay. Well, if you see Lemmy, could you tell him that we're looking for him? We really want to help him and his sister make it out of here, and life can be better. And she's all talking reason and all this shit. And these assholes drive by. And I remember you, Shawn, you're on the back of the moped, and you're laughing. And he goes, hey, what's the matter, Lemmy? Your dad been beating you again? And you're like just laughing your fucking ass off. And I hated you guys, and I sprinted away and made my way back to the house. And then after everybody sobered up and calmed down, it was like, that was the greatest fucking thing, that prank of all time. And now, of course, as adults, we're getting constant barrages of emails and phone calls about people trying to scam us in various ways. No harm, no foul, thankfully, but we definitely wasted that woman's time.
Oh.
we probably would have went to juvenile home. We probably would have went to juvie, bro.
If not for that, then something else.
Something else, yeah. So we get through middle school, and we wrestled. I started wrestling a little bit later than Shawn, but that was what do you remember of the wrestling days?
I remember that it was something that I really, really enjoyed, and that I got into pretty heavily. I don't know. I guess it's kind of a common theme now with me. I guess like the individual sports I was really into, because it was kind of seemed like the more you put in, the more you pull out. You're not really like leading, that it's all you. And wrestling was like really, it's an intense sport, it really is.
Yeah.
And it appealed to me. That was, I don't know, I guess maybe I was probably about 10 or 11 when I started. And we had a lot of good times with that. Do you remember we went to wrestling camp one year?
Yeah, I was good. That was on my list to talk about. That was friggin' awesome, bro.
That was like our first time. It was like the first time I'd ever really been away from our parents and whatever. And I went to Bucknell University.
Yeah, that was pretty special.
Yeah.
That was, again, being young, almost like a Spartan experience. Like, you were a lot more practiced and better than I was, but I remember joining you on that camp, and that was fucking great, dude. I mean, that was, I became like nothing I grew a lot as a result of that. I remember I was like 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. And in 8th grade, I wrestled. It must have been 7th grade, because then in 8th grade, I wrestled. And I felt really like I had grown quite a bit. And of course, we're developing and stuff too, but my technique. And then, but that was a great time, man. There was, and also there were older wrestlers, right? So we were kind of running with guys who we were like maybe 8th grade or freshman year. They were high school wrestlers all the way up to, senior level. So we were palling around with them and living in a dorm. Remember the guy who was, I don't know if you remember the guy who was tasked with like making sure you're in this dorm, you're in that door, like running the thing. And he saw us out. We weren't supposed to be out. And then he saw us all walking in a group. And he's like, what are you guys doing? Get back to the thing. And well, I better not get in any trouble, sort of thing. He kind of let us do our thing. You remember that?
No, man. You've got a real good recollection.
He was a dark green.
Man. No, I don't remember that. I
was a dark
remember
green.
like what? Okay. One of the things I remember was just like ordering pizza and just like long days too. Just that was good stuff.
Yeah. How about remember the guy that they kept calling him Andre? He was a big wrestler guy. So big that some of the other guys started. One guy we were hanging out with, I remember, was kind of picking on him and calling him Andre because he was just this giant guy. And then Andre, he started chasing him around and stuff like that. Anyway, just kind of tomfoolery. But I remember that very fondly. Fucking the Bonomo brothers were there, right?
Yeah.
Taught us. They did this trick where they would run up a wall and do a flip off the wall. So really, really cool. So wrestling was cool. I agree. We're kind of testing our mettle. You're going man on man in the middle of a mat. It definitely helps you grow physically and mentally as a result of that. You learn how to win. You learn how to lose. You learn about body control. So that was a great confidence builder for us, I think. And so let's transition to the Marine Corps side. What motivated you to join the Corps, and did it meet your expectations?
Well, honestly, man, Marine Corps was not my first pick. I don't know if you know that.
No.
So it was going into the senior year of high school, kind of was hit with the, what are you going to do kind of thing, my grades weren't terrible, but I guess just a classic underachiever. Didn't know if didn't really know what I wanted to go to school for. I knew what I was interested in, but just didn't think I had the grades to pull it off, or the funding and that sort of thing, and or even the maturity, Yeah. So military right away was like, okay, this is going to be my out. And first place I went to was the Coast Guard. My mindset at that time being most important thing in my life at that time was surfing. And I said, well, you know what, if I go in the Coast Guard, I'll be, destined to end up on the coast somewhere. So I'll be able to surf and, all be good. And one of the things that I was interested in the Coast Guard was meteorology. Through surfing and stuff, I became pretty interested in the weather and that sort of thing. So I said, you know what, maybe I can go in there, be a meteorologist, go in the Coast Guard, knock it out, whatever, see what's up. So I went and ended up taking my ASFAB with a Coast Guard recruiter up in Newark. That was an interesting evening, and ended up scoring pretty well. Actually, better than I expected, and I think better than the recruiter expected. And so, after the test results came in, and he says, "Okay, well, how do we get you signed up? Whatever. What do you want to do?" Or I don't think he asked me what I wanted to do. I think I told him what I wanted to do. So I want to be a meteorologist. He says, "Well, we're a small branch. We're a Department of Transportation, and basically we put you where we need you. So you could end up painting buoys for 4 years." I was like, well, I don't know about that. That's not something that was appealing to me. So at that time, I know you were already enlisted in the Marines, and a couple other guys that we were, ran around with were signing up for the Marine Corps. And I decided to go and talk to the recruiter. I was probably the recruiter's wet dream, because it was simple. Like, basically, I just walked in, told him my story, told him what I wanted to do, and our recruiter at the time, basically spun me around and put me somewhere where I had no idea what I was in for. I went into the recruiter's office to tell him that I wanted to be a weatherman, right? The Marine Corps. And at that time, I had long hair and, I was pretty built and whatever. And this guy says to me, weatherman? Coming to the Marine Corps to be a weatherman? Bullshit. You're an 03. And I don't know if he had a, quota or however that worked or whatever. I never really got to the bottom of the whole recruiting scenario. But he, basically sold me on it. Like, it's like camping with guns. And I said, oh, shit, that doesn't sound too bad. I'll give it a shot. And that was that. I was probably one of the last ones out of our whole crew. And I think we set a state record at that time, if I'm not mistaken. I think we had 10 or 12 people from our graduating
class. A lot of guys. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. I was one of the last ones, but I definitely was not my first pick.
All right. So you wound up 03. So you did all the stuff that we had spoken about in previous podcasts, to include recruit training, MCT, School of Infantry. At what point did you, because you wound up in 2nd Recon Battalion, right?
Yes. I realized very quickly, once I realized in boot camp that the infantry line company thing was probably going to be a problem for me. I felt like the way that it was coming off to me was that it was going to be like super, super rigid and structured, and and I had heard these rumors and read some books and watched movies and all that sort of thing. But that there's this recon thing, and it's a lot more relaxed, but it's intense, but it's also not as rigid as far as garrison type stuff and this and that. So that was appealing to me, because I was thinking, man, I don't know if I could handle rifle company life, which I mean, you're in the Marine Corps, you adapt. I mean, that's the one thing we're But I made it a mission early on when I was in SOI that I was I kept telling everybody, like, I want to be in recon, and they're like, yeah, whatever. I remember they were trying to split us up once you get into SOI. They were separating people for weapons company, mortars, and machine gunners, and riflemen. And I just remember hearing at that time, like, the only way that you can get into recon is if you're a rifleman. They don't want machine gunners. They don't want whatever, they want riflemen. They kept trying to put me into weapons company or into a specialization, and I just kept resisting. I kept, they would say, okay, we'll go over with this group, and I would go with the riflemen, because I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to be in recon. Well, fast forward, I get through school, SOI, and got orders to 3-8. And I was really disappointed because I was staying at Lejeune, and I had already figured out, as most people do in your time at Camp Geiger, that Jacksonville, that whole area around there, is just the pits. Here I was thinking, okay, and it was funny. I remember when they were reading off the names of where you were going for your duty station, and going alphabetically. People ahead of me, there was 3 people ahead of me were going to Pendleton, and then one guy, there was Wilson, K Bay going to Hawaii, and this, and so I'm going to California or Hawaii. That's all I kept thinking about. California or Hawaii, so I could surf, And you get to me and they're like, Lejeune 3.8. I'm like, shit. So we got on the 5-ton, drove around the into the main base at Camp Lejeune from Camp Geiger, and went to the receiving area. And while we were there, 3 men showed up, and it was the first time I'd ever seen the devices, the Gold Wing and the scuba bubble. These 3 men walked in and they're squared away, and they're just like, all right, who wants to give it a shot? This is, the recon indoctrination. Well, I mean, I would say at least half the people, raised their hand. Went out and did the indoc. Out of, I think, the 75 people or so, maybe it was a little more, 5 of us made it. And out of the 5, I was the only one to finish my entire enlistment in a reconnaissance unit. People either got hurt or failed out of schools, or so it was pretty wild. I was kind of a huge stroke of luck too, because there was a lot of stuff going on with recon at that time, and they hadn't been really taking people in. They were restructuring, and at the time when I went, it was 2nd Recon Company. They had been knocked down from a battalion to a company. We were actually part of Headquarters Battalion, 2nd Marine Division. So, they were downsizing. I think I had to do kind of like budgetary type stuff and whatever. But yeah, they hadn't been offering indocs for months, and I just got lucky. I got an opportunity and just refused to quit.
That's what it takes, I guess, huh? What was the indoc like?
So the indoc was, I mean, you didn't really have any, like, from that moment, from the time you volunteered, you basically just got on a 5-ton. They shot us out to Onslow Beach. Did a Marine Corps PFT, at which you had to score. I mean, I don't think they really told us the standards beforehand, but it was just basically max effort on everything. They just say maximum effort. We're not going to tell you what the standards are, but later on down the road, I kind of, we figured it out. But so yeah, Marine Corps PFT. All the while in between events and stuff, it's not your typical PFT. You're in the lean and rest, and you're getting thrashed and flutter kicks and whatever. It's it's a lot of yelling and screaming. From there, from the PFT, we did I think it was forward and backwards through the O course, timed. More BS in between, and then would be a 5-mile combat equipment run, like a ruck run on the beach. That was timed as well. And this is all in succession. And then the final part of it is they load you up, they take you over to main side, you go to the pool, and that's where shit gets real. It was, I think, a timed 500-meter breaststroke in combat equipment, or not combat equipment, I'm sorry, just camis. And there was like a treading water with these kind of bricks. And meanwhile, they're swimming underneath you. They're pulling you down onto the water, squirting you with the hose in the face, all this crap. Just basically trying to get you to freak out in water, which a lot of people did. I was fortunate. I kind of drew on my my surfing experience. I was completely calm in the water. I mean, I was dog tired, just dead. And once we got to the pool, I remember like being on the Humvee and everybody was like really quiet and scared. And I'm thinking, I made it. Like everybody was sweating the pool. I couldn't wait to get there. And that's what pretty much, that was my strong suit. We got through that. Yeah, when we got out of the pool, I looked around. There was 4 other guys. That was it. It's like, holy shit.
That's awesome. Hell yeah, man. That's great. That's great to hear about that. So what was what was life like in 2nd Recon? Like, what were your days like? Now, I know and then you could talk a little bit about your schooling and stuff. I know there's some cool schools that you had done. So what was daily life like?
Well, I mean, starting off, it just, after the indoc was didn't get much better from there. You're kind of, I mean, they break you down, even though you've gone through boot camp and you've gone through SOI and you're a Marine. You are, you know, you're the lowest form of life as a boot, or as they used to call it in the recon community. You'd be a rope. You used to have to wear this sling rope around you, and that's how they, you know, everybody knew you were the new guy until you actually passed the school and got the MOS. You had to wear this rope, so you were, you know, you stood out. And then actually, we had a, you know, a group of us, the 5 of us, always had us together. We didn't live in the barracks. We lived in shelter halves outside.
Oh, shit. That's fucking sucks.
For a little bit, you know. Yeah. Well, meanwhile, too, it's like we lived on Onslow Beach, and I don't know if you remember back in those days, but we were one of the only units at that time living in a squad bay. So made for an interesting environment because, you know, 1630 rolled around, you know, all the you know, staff NCOs and the brass and everybody's gone. Leaves, you know, all kinds of, you know, shit goes down out there, you know, it's hazing and all that fun stuff. And
oh yeah.
But it was intense. Luckily, I got a quota for ARS, Amphibious Reconnaissance School, in Fort Story. It's basically Virginia Beach. It's Virginia Beach. I got a quota pretty quick, and I think it was probably Labor Day weekend of 1994. So I'd been in the fleet from, that was maybe a month and a half, 2 months. Most people were waiting 6 months, you know, whatever, before they got a quota. So I got real lucky in that sense too. Yeah, went away to school and came back and ended up in a team. But life was, you know, they kind of had a motto out there, and it was like, work hard, play hard. And that's what it was. You know, the people, and it kind of like, I had an image in my head of how it was, like how everybody was going to be. And it was not like that. It was just a lot of really different people, but the same. That makes sense. Everybody just kind of has this like extra gear, and just, you know, real professional. And it was like a great source of pride for a lot of people, like their knowledge and, you know, their physical fitness, everything. Everybody, you know, nothing was taken lightly. Great environment, you know, as far as, you know, the Marine Corps goes. You know, throughout the years and being around, you know, as I'm sure you had too in your unit. And, you know, when you get around other units, and everybody's different, you know, different jobs, different units, you know, morale wise and stuff like that. But like, everybody was just, you know, up here.
Yeah, that's great to be, because iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's infectious. You know, you look around at the guys around you, and everybody is just so smart and so, you know, and just, you know, incredible shape and whatever. It's like, man, you don't want to be the lackey, you know?
Yeah.
And looking around, there really wasn't. You know, everybody took the stuff real serious.
That's the way it should be. So now tell me about some of the schools. You mentioned ARS.
Yeah. Well, that was, I mean, I always say, like, right, I think to myself, because I was trying to like stir this stuff up before coming on this podcast here. Like my first, I don't know, 18 months or so in the Marine Corps, I felt like I was being fed with a fire hose, man. It was just a lot of stuff coming at me. You know, I went right from SOI, like I said, within 2 months, I'm in ARS, and which is pretty advanced school as far as like patrolling goes, and just the amount of information that's being given to you. It's, you know, like I don't know, building on the infantry stuff, it goes a lot further. Now, a lot of the people around me in the school, you know, a lot of NCOs, senior lance corporals. I was a slick sleeve private, man. And just trying to digest all this stuff and trying to, you know, get my footing in the Marine Corps, like just adjust to the life. Yeah, it was a lot.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, it's like a fire hose. It's not a trickle. It's a fire hose of information and training and all that shit. So you went to Amphibious Reconnaissance School with all the higher end patrolling, shit and all that. And then I know that you had done jump
and
school.
nautical navigation, jump school, combatant dive school, SEER school, jungle survival school. I know there's probably some stuff I'm leaving out. We were very lucky in that sense. Like we just really, really got hooked up on that end. Yeah, I mean, and if you showed interest, the more, I mean, and proficiency, they were more than happy to just keep moving you along. It felt like, you know.
See,
and nobody was really, really. Nobody was really like comfortable just sitting around. Everybody was just kind of, you know, like I said, it was just a really fast-paced environment.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. As you might have listened to some of the previous podcasts, that's one of my complaints about my experience. You know, I think that there was a lot of redeeming aspects of life in a line company, in a rifle platoon, but the continuing education is not necessarily there. We've got a few. You go to NCO school, you go to close combat instructor school, you can go to the corporal's course, or you know, but you're not going to ranger school. You're not going to jump school, scuba school, obviously, because it's not within your mission. But it would have been real cool to be able to, you know, to tap into some of that stuff. And that's cool that it's interesting also that it was just a matter of bunch of guys showing up and saying, hey, we're going to run an indoc, because the indoc, I know I question what the command would feel about that. Like, I don't think they were going out of their way to try to give people away, right? They also want their Marines there. So what is that like when you come into the company office and say, hey, we're going to run an indoc? I'm sure these guys are probably like, hey, well, we might have some good candidates for you, but we hate to fucking lose them, right? Hate to lose Joe Blow. He's doing well in first platoon or whatever. You're going to send him over he's going to leave us, you know, and kind of on the line of like breaking ranks sort of thing a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I mean, actually two guys that were in my platoon for a while had come over from the line companies, and it was a battle. And I remember it went on for a while too, like, excuse me, just like getting them over there and getting their command selected, because these guys were shit hot, man. These guys were, you know, studs in their you know, respective units. So yeah, you're right. They didn't want to let them go. Meanwhile, you know, they're being drawn to this and being, you know, kind of sucked in too at the same time. But,
yeah. Because if that was a known quantity, like if they said, I imagine in my company, if they were like, hey, you know, anybody want to go to fucking force recon? You know, you get a bunch of people who would say, yeah, hell yeah. And then there's a bunch that would probably be like, oh, outside of my comfort zone or whatever. But you definitely would lose some good fuckers. You'd lose some really good Marines from that. So I don't know how I would feel about that if I was a first sergeant or whatever, and somebody comes over and you know, you see Smith, who's like, you know, one of your best squad leaders or even a platoon sergeant, and they're like, hey, you got an opportunity to go get out of this, you know, friggin' Thursday field day, games, you know, get online and friggin' do squad rushes shit. Hell yeah, you're going to send me off, give me all these schools, give me the opportunities to grow and treat me a little bit with a little bit more dignity. Like a little bit. That's always my impression of the special operations community is like, you freaking, it's a meritocracy. You're busting your ass. You're working hard. You have to, you know, be able to hang in there and put up or shut up. But you get on the other side of that, you get a little bit more privileges and relaxation and respect, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess that would be my impression. Yeah, I mean, we were treated pretty well, and it was a different environment. I will definitely say that. Having done a deployment with, we were part of a BLT, so you know, we spent a lot of time with that particular unit at the time. I believe it was 2-8, and seeing the way that they conduct business and the way that people were treated and stuff, and it was like, whoa, you know. And plus, we'd heard about it too from, you know, guys that had come from the line companies, you know, that were let go, were able to get away and come out and join us. You know, they would paint this picture like it was like none of us would ever make it.
Yeah.
I mean, we would have like formations where we're wearing, boonie covers, T-shirts, and, UDT shorts. And, I had a platoon sergeant who used to smoke a pipe in formation. Like, that's the kind of shit that, it's different, But, we were also out. We were isolated being out on Onslow Beach. It was a known thing. Once you cross the bridge and you go over to main side, then, you got to square yourself away and whatever, which that was never really my game. It's never really good on that end.
Irish pennants, scanning your uniform for Irish pennants and shit like that.
Oh, shit.
Tell me about some impactful Marines that you remember from those days.
Had quite a few, but one comes to mind, and it's kind of a sad story in that it ended up basically I ended up in a team once I'd gone through this series of schools and stuff, and we were working up to go on a med float, and ended up in this guy's team. His name is Sergeant Hayes, John Hayes. Just an absolute monster. PT stud, smart as a whip, could outdrink you, outlaugh you, whatever. Anything you did, this guy could do it 10 times better. And just the nicest human being you've ever met. Caring, and also hard as a rock. That was my ideal Marine. Was lucky enough to end up in this guy's team and maybe pull a little bit out of that, pull a little from him in me. But this was, unfortunately for a lot of people, I guess, the leader that I hold all leaders to. It's almost unfair. We fast forward into the civilian world. Everybody that I've worked for, most people, have been a little bit disappointing in some regards, in that this guy was proficient and respected so much that you would, you always, when he asked you to do something, you just did it to the, maximum effort every time, because if you didn't, he'd show you how it was fucking done. I don't see too many people in the world like that. But as the story goes, he stayed in the Marine Corps after I EAS'd, and he ended up dying in an IED explosion in Afghanistan in 2008.
Sorry to hear that.
Amazing human being.
Yeah, that's tremendous, man. I have some, my equivalents to that, some of the Marines that I remember fondly, and it's true. It's true with the civilian sector. There are exceptions, but there were some people that we served with that were just larger than life, right? And they wanted you to make you better. And as you said, and I this is my philosophy to this day, like, especially when it comes down to when people pass, or whatever the circumstances are, there's somebody's an awesome individual and they were special in your life and they pass for whatever reason. I'll hang my head a little bit, but I also, true to like Marine Corps philosophy, like if I'm following you and you're charging that fucking hill and you go down, I'm grabbing that freaking guide on and I'm going up the hill. You know what I mean? Like people that would make in the civilian sector or in most other settings, you're not going to find a lot of people that have the training or fortitude or audacity to do that. But it's one of the things I love about, having been part of a cohesive unit. It's like, hey, if I go down, everything I know. We've all been working together for however long. You're going to pick up my rifle or the guidon, which is a flag, and you're going to charge that hill. You're going to complete the mission. So that person is a part of me. Like he's incorporated. He's part of you, having known him and worked with him and love him. I really believe that somebody impacts you that much that you carry them around with you, and that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, you honor them with the way you carry yourself and the way that you behave.
Yeah, it's very special.
Or the way you attack things. Yeah.
So that's That's one of the big lessons that I take. One of my big takeaways from service and some of the people. I call it like I think of it like as like precedent. Like if you've done something to a certain standard, or if you've been trained to do something to a certain standard and you don't do it, you've broken precedent. You now have degraded, So like, hey, we have this experience, whatever, the good, bad, and everything. But if you take something positive away from your service at such a young time, we were we were basically young men, boys when we started, and then you do something to a certain standard, you have an experience. It's like you mentioned and rewinding, we're talking about, oh, I don't know if I was a good student. I don't know if what I want to do. Everybody's asking me. And then you go and do something and you do it to a certain standard. You're like, fuck, what else? What am I going to let get in my way after that? Like what is an obstacle that I could not achieve or surmount? As a result of working with people like that. So
I think that's probably the one of the biggest things that I took from the Marine Corps experience was just that shit, I lost my train of thought. Like just hitting everything head on, man. Just going for it.
Yeah.
And having the confidence. Once, there's so many times throughout my time in the Marine Corps, I reflect on it once in a while where you're like, I can't do that. And then you fucking do it. And you're like, holy fuck, you start to realize your potential. Like that was, I guess that was what I was going for. That was my big takeaway was I came out with just a supreme confidence, like nothing was going to keep me down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You guys going to put me on point? Oh my God. Are you going to put me on land? Are you going to put me on the compass? I'm run the compass. I'm responsible for us getting to the objective, and then you get second guess yourself. And then, you get lost and then you find yourself and then you're like, I can do this. I can do it. I did it then. I'll do it again. And I don't think there's a lot in that sense. I think, it's a very special thing that the military can do in cultivating leadership and growing people up and giving them experience. It was perfect for me. You might have heard me talking in a previous podcast, but I had a fucking article in the piece of mail from my son, Marine Corps recruiting for Sam Oberst. And it said, it was this whole pamphlet and it says, be a warrior, defend. And then he opened it up and it said, your hometown. And it's like appealing to, that's one thing the Marine Corps is really good at. Their marketing plan strategy. They know what makes young men in particular tick, young people in general. Like, oh, you want a challenge? You think you're good enough? You want to be part? We're not even sure we want you. Hey, I want to. You think you can do enough? I don't think you can be part of this team. You think you make it? I don't know. I don't think you're going to be able to do it. Right?
Prove me wrong. Yeah.
Prove me wrong. So it's great. It's just that right now, I don't know if I would love it for my kids and any young person I meet, if they're floundering trying to find themselves, it's a good place to go find yourself, not without its risks.
Holy shit. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a different time now, man.
Not without its risks.
But I actually listened to that. I listened to that podcast about you talked about getting that pamphlet, and it made me think about it too. Because we have a friend of ours whose son just went Marine Corps, and I'm like, man, like I saw those pictures, and I thought about him. Like, God, that's got to be a real proud papa moment there, having your son, going to Marine Corps. And then I thought about it. And I listened to your thing too, and I was like, but also too, it's a different time, and I don't know. Knowing what I know now, I don't know if it's the times or just being more knowledgeable of the big picture. I don't know how I would feel.
Yeah, one of my big things with that, and you heard me say it, I'm sure, but the problem with being a young warrior is that you're just worrying about. It's great because you're just got fucking the blinders on. You have a mission, and you got your guys. And that's all that matters. And if they send us over to some God forbidden place, we're going to go because we sign our lives away and we're going to get out. We're going to accomplish the mission, but we're also going to get each other out alive. And
yeah, it's about the guy to your right and left.
Guy to your right and left. And that's a very special thing, that bond too. But we never, it was above our pay grade to think about the why or the politics of it. And now when I see the bickering and stuff, and I try not to watch the news, but when I see the bickering back and forth of, hey, you know, are they going to commit American forces? Or are we going to do this and the other thing? I'm thinking, motherfuckers, you better have walked a post before you send any of our young people out there and commit them to some bullshit. Take it real seriously, you know? And I don't think they do. I think that you ask any politician, I think that they're like, yeah. It's troubling because, you know, again, I mentioned this in previous podcasts, but we grew up at a time when it was John J. Rambo, fucking Chuck Norris, Missing in Action, you know, Van Damme, kicking us, you know, America, all this patriotism. If it wasn't overtly nationalism, patriotism, it was like we're into the Gulf War was just happened. So we're going to go get the bad guys. And if there's in fact, I'm just watching something yesterday, bro. And it was, it's actually pretty good. It's on Prime. It's called The Lioness. And as the story goes, the lioness is actually the woman from, what's the thing with the Na'vi, they live with a giant tree. They're like, it's this world. What the fuck? Avatar. Have you seen Avatar? Yeah. All right. So there's the chick from Avatar.
It's been a while, but
yeah. Anyway, so she's the woman. The main character is that she's the lioness. She's like this above CIA operative ass kicker, and she's looking for these female recruits, somebody to insert and do all kinds of cloak and dagger shit. So enter this girl who is like abused. She was a dancer, topless dancer. She was, you know, she's running from a boyfriend who was beating the shit out of her. She runs into a Marine Corps recruiting office, and this guy's like, you just came in the right place, son. You better turn around and get the fuck out of here. And he's, you know, looked like Staff Sergeant Johnson from our recruiting. Big black, big dark green guy, well muscled. And they signed her up, and she became this like super soldier. She just had a natural ability. She's knocking out dead hangs. She's doing martial arts shit. And so they recruit her because she was so fucking tough and mean as a female Marine. And they're talking about all this stuff. Anyway, the whole notion, this guy, the recruiter, tells her, you're going to take care of people who can't take care of themselves. You're going to be the anti-bully, you know, we're going to do right. And so what that one verse of the Marines hymn, to fight for right and freedom and to keep our honor clean. That's always one I go back to. I wanted to fight for right and freedom and to be honorable and to, you know, and that I just want to make sure that if you got that, if you're going to have people singing that fucking hymn and wearing that uniform, you better help us do that. You know what I mean? As a politician. And, you know, I don't know. I have no confidence in our leadership, and that's across the spectrum. I don't care. Yeah. And it's a bummer. The closest I came to fucking, I was really happy when Mattis was he Secretary of Defense. He just seems like they call him the warrior poet or something like that. But he's a thinker. He's a good guy. He's a warrior. He's a Marine. He's perfect. I don't know what the fuck he's doing now, but we kind of really needed somebody with those sensibilities, you know?
Right.
So it's weird, but and all that to say, I don't know. Like I sent a message to my son the other day after we all go to work and school, and I texted him. I said, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I did something I shouldn't have done. I ripped up that I threw out your solicitation for the Marine Corps. It's one of the things I'm proud of most in this life. I wouldn't turn back the clock, and I love my service and all that shit. I love you. You know, if you want that experience before you think about anything, what you want to do with your life, come to me, talk to my buddies." And I think he understood what I was saying. So, but yeah,
that's a great discussion to have too.
Yeah. Let's see, man. So talk about Marine Corps schools. Any cool experiences, deployments, cool stories you got there? Vivid memories.
Vivid memories. I don't know. It's. I mean, other than like kind of hijinks, port type stuff, and some training, and it's kind of like a blur. It's weird. It comes out more, I guess. I have like one of my. I mean, actually, my best friend was one of my teammates. Was my best man, whatever. We get together, and as you know, you get together with your old buddies and stuff, and the stories start flowing. But just like on a normal day, I just have a hard time kind of like separating everything.
Yeah.
But go for it.
No. Something I was thinking about. I go on these walks. I think better when I walk. I just like to get out there, try to get away from people. But one of the things I've been doing is walking down this road along this creek, and it's kind of country up there. So you won't maybe get a car or two, a cyclist. So I go at night just because that's when I have time to do it. And so I'm walking and I'm in the dark, you know what I mean? And I'm listening to, like, you ever find yourself walking through a park or going up in the upper peninsula or camping, and you're walking through down a trail and you're remembering some of those, like walking in the dark and hearing the sounds of the night or the crackle of a twig underfoot and being like, man, a lot of people, like I told somebody that's where I walk and that's when I do it. And they're like, you're walking in the dark up there alone. I'm like, and I caught myself getting a little bit spooked. Yeah. I caught myself getting a little spooked too. Like, I'm like, ooh, what was that noise? And I'm turning around and, I'll usually pack a little bit of a penknife or something with me, but, your primary sense is taken away. It's dark. You can't see anything. So for lack of that, you start to like, ooh, what's that? Is somebody following me? What's that in the woods? Is that a deer? And I remember some of those times patrolling and being in the middle of the fucking in the night in the dark woods with zero, with not a lot of illumination and being completely at home. I think that's something that most people do not experience, that comfort walking around or patrolling and or how the hell, I mean, you got glasses, so do I now, but how the hell we not poke our eyes out of our fucking head walking through the woods like that? I mean, like, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think.
Poke the eyes at fucking sticks.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. So tell me about so you went on a float?
Yeah, we went. I guess it would have been of June of 1996. Came back in December. Did a med float. Just did a lot of training out there. A lot of liberty. Summer in the med, so that was pretty cool for a young man. We had a ball. Made it up into the Black Sea. Got to hit some pretty interesting places up in there. Ukraine, I believe you went there too.
Yeah.
Romania. Bunch of Mediterranean ports. Some of the Greek Isles, Rhodes, Patria, down into Israel. Just a lot of training and just a lot of kind of just seeing the world. It was wild. I draw back on that a lot, actually, when I think, I mean, obviously we do it a lot differently now as somebody's a little bit more grown up, but, just being completely oblivious to all this culture and all this different things that are going on, at 19, 20 years old, it's wild.
Yeah. One of the things I think about in that respect, sometimes, and I was mentioning this in previous podcasts, like I can walk out onto that flight deck in my mind. I can walk out onto the flight deck in the morning as we're mooring into some port in Spain or Israel or whatever. And you can remember looking out onto a civilization, like especially in Europe, it seems like there's everything close, and all of a sudden you're looking up a hill and there's all these houses on top of one another, and you smell the harbor and you smell the food and some fucking farts, and you smell the diesel from vehicles, and you see the little, Vespas and shit zipping around the harbor, and you're like, holy shit, like it's like a combination. It's like the smell of a culture, right?
Yeah.
And like it could be fucking it's all, there's similarities, but then like you could be in Spain, you mean road to Spain, or you could be in Greece, or you could be in Ukraine, and you're looking up and you're looking at, whoa, this is a people, this is like a civilization, and I'm smelling and I'm looking at all these things. I'm like, this is fucking crazy, because we're so isolated in the US, right? Like a lot of times to such an extent that people like to travel, but there's this whole American exceptionalism where we fancy that all the best things in life are here, to the extent that we're not really hip to, wow, look at the way they do things here. Look at the food, look at the people. It's very interesting.
Well, and the other thing too is just, I mean, you think about it in terms of like time, like United States is such a young country, and then you go to these old civilizations, you know what I mean? Like, okay, a couple hundred years old. These places are thousands, there's things that are, 1,000 years, a couple hundred years old, like all over the place.
Yeah. Real history.
Like you say, yeah. Like that never even really occurred to me, I guess, growing up in little small Lacey Township, like never thought about what things were like over in Europe and whatever. And when you see it, it's like, wow.
Yeah. It's something that and that's the thing. I've started to get into this, as you said a little bit earlier, I think, seeing a lot of the world as a Marine. Of course, you're looking for bars and red light districts, take in some culture or whatever, but I mean, a lot of it was clouded by beer and all that shit. But that's what we did at the time. But now I want to see some things on my own terms a little bit more. Like even within the United States, I haven't seen, going out to Michigan. It's the first time I ever saw the Great Lakes, really. I got a trip planned to Zion in Utah in the fall that I want to start doing that hikes. I want to see Yellowstone. I want to see the Grand Canyon. I never did any of that shit. So now I get, family life and all that stuff. Now the kids are a little bit older, I could start getting away a little bit more, but I think it's important to broaden our perspective. And that's another, an upside of service and the travel that we did. When we did it, it was like, yeah, you pull into friggin' Spain. I'm going out there, I'm living as these people live. I'm interacting with people with different languages and ways of life. It was very cool to broaden horizons. You guys getting any scraps or anything like that in those towns, those ports? You guys want to get any scuffles, any fights, any trouble?
No, not really. I mean, trouble, yeah. I mean, as far as like coming back late and that sort of thing, or being too messed up to, like, I remember, never really had any fights with, I guess, the locals or whatever.
Yeah.
Luckily.
Yeah.
I mean, there were definitely stories of it from people in, different units and stuff that were, we were with in port and whatnot, but, Matt's just stay out of trouble most of the time.
That's good.
With the occasional coming back late or whatever. So,
yeah. How about training libbo destinations? What was your favorite libbo destination?
We had a really good time in Rhodes, Greece. Just being there, midsummer, and people from Europe, all over Europe, are vacationing there as well. So got to just meet a bunch of different people. place is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, food, like I never really had. I think that was the first time I ever had a gyro.
Yeah.
Was and it's never been as good since. Yeah, just something about it was so like exotic to me at that time. Even just looking around and seeing like when you look, one thing I did notice about Greece too is like everything was like white, like shimmering white. A lot of the buildings and whatever, and yeah, it was just I don't know, it was super interesting. It left a huge mark on me.
Yeah. Hopefully you go back there
Good
sometime,
stuff.
man.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we talk about Europe, but we're I don't know how that could work, but maybe if I hit the lottery or something.
Just don't let them behind you, the Greek guys, I mean.
Yeah,
because they look that they might try to anyway. Fucking. So tell us about okay. Yeah, you told me you mentioned a story from Turkey. Yet the guy with the shoe polish. Tell that story.
Yeah, I remember. So we were in Izmir, Turkey, and I remember we couldn't pull the ship into the port, and they had these like Liberty shuttles. Did you ever have a port like that where they shuttle you to and from the ship?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once we got onto the shore, they had kind of like a market set up. I don't know. I mean, probably just targeting us, but with like all kinds of leather jackets and belts and shoes and food and whatever. Real interesting, kind of lively, bustling scene. But we get there, we get into port, take the Liberty shuttle. And I remember I had these kind of like hiking boots that I brought on the float with us for just for Liberty attire, just for walking and whatnot. So they're like these like leather Columbia hiking boots. Well, we get off the boat and we're kind of just checking things out, mouths wide open, just like, holy crap, this is wild. Like, all these people, all this crazy stuff, food we've never seen, smells we've never smelled, and just kind of blown away by this whole thing. All of a sudden I feel this like thud on my foot. And I look down and there's a guy standing there with a shoe shine kit in his hand. He's got kind of like I don't know, it would be like a putty knife kind of thing or a mud knife with like this red goo on it. And he had just slapped it onto my brown hiking boot. And so I look at this guy, I'm like, what the fuck, man? I take off. So the guy starts buffing out. He turns the damn thing red, right? Because it's like wax or whatever, kiwi, like red colored kiwi. I'm like, you gotta, so then he's, puts his hand up, $5. So I give the guy $1 and I tell him, get the fuck away from me. And I was like pissed off about it. So I walk away, I got one red shoe now and one brown one. So we got, doing what we do, got all nice and, liquored up and whatever. And we're back at the port, maybe, 10, 12 hours later, waiting for the Liberty shuttle to go back to the ship. And I'm kind of sitting there against this wall and, kind of half falling asleep, drunk, whatever. And all of a sudden I feel this thud on my other foot. Same guy. And I guess he didn't realize it, that it already got me. And as soon as I felt it and I looked up, and I kind of looked up and he like, this guy's eyes got this big. And I think I chased him for a little bit. I don't know what I would have done, but yeah. So then from that point on, that was early in the deployment, my brown hiking boots were red.
Yeah, there's a lot of panhandlers and shit like that. Obviously, cities. I remember the gypsies getting off ship. The gypsies would try to sell you flowers or some shit. And I remember the one looked like she was, we just walked by and might have muttered some expletives or something. And I think she cursed us. I think that I am the way today. I think that I am the way that I am today because the gypsy might have cursed me in Valencia, Spain. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, great friggin' memories of going on Liberty there. What a great opportunity. Deployments and shit like that. Let's wind down. I got a couple questions there for you. This one is about music, because I know that as long as I've known you, Shawn, music has always been a very powerful presence in your life, and that goes back to the song, the skateboarding music. Of course, we came up on fucking classic rock and roll, so we were heavily steeped in that growing up. And then Jane's Addiction. I think you might have introduced me to Jane's Addiction. That was Ocean Size by Jane's Addiction. That was our full credit to Perry Farrell and his crew. Great song, an homage, in my view, to our growing up on the shore. So tell us about music in your life.
Man, it's probably aside from my wife and I don't know, probably one of the most important things. Another thing that motivates me, I guess, going back to your theme, I spend a lot of time, live music in particular, traveling for live music. Avid record collector. I've been a collector of music in all formats since going back to when I was a little kid, cassettes and records and that type of thing. But I spend a good deal of time collecting records, going to see live music. Yeah, that's what drives me, and It's been a pretty driving force most of my life.
Yeah. I remember going to a couple. I don't know if it was a Dead. It might have been a Jerry Garcia band. Or maybe it was a Dead. I believe it was you. We went, and Steve Miller might have opened up or something.
Yeah, definitely. Them. Yeah, probably Giant Stadium, 1992.
Yeah,
that would be. I definitely know we saw a Jerry band together. Yeah.
It was that was pretty incredible to see that. I mean, that was an experience. I had somebody the other day tell me, because I'm big here in my office about having a soundtrack, and Spotify is my go-to. So like in the mornings, I like to play something mellow, to start the day. And then as the frenzied activity, as we get busier throughout the day and the evening, I got to put all kinds of shit, pull out all the stops to find good music. But somebody the other day said, well, actually, backing up, I read an article, scientific article a while back that said our musical preferences are saved, like in our brain neurologically, in our late teens, early 20s. And I take that to mean like if you're watching, we grew up on classic rock and roll. And so then you're watching the ball drop on New Year's Eve and you're like, who the fuck is Macklemore and Dickwad? I never heard of these people. Who are these people? But there's a tendency for people who grew up in a certain genre to, I always listen to MMR. I always listen to this station. And then they kind of shun anything new. I think that's a terrible thing, because you have to be open to.
Oh, man. Yeah, you're missing out.
Right? You have to be flexible.
There's so much good music, and there's just to pigeonhole something like to me, you're cheating yourself. There's got to just be open to all of it. There's things like I swore, early on, I used to say all the time, like, oh, I like everything except for country music. I got probably about 5 years ago, I got way into country music. Like, I just never even gave it a shot. And then one day I just opened up to it. It was like, oh my God, I know what these guys are talking about. I think maybe I didn't have the maturity to understand the music at the time. I think with a lot of the classic country and stuff that I started getting into, you got to have a certain amount of life experience to know what they're talking about. You got to have your heart broken. You got to have your car break down and your dog die, and that sort of thing. So with that, there's a certain level of maturity and stuff for certain genres of music. But I leave it all open. I don't take it lightly. If somebody sends me a recommendation, I have a lot of friends, kind of know me as a music person, and somebody will send me, hey man, check this out. Now, if somebody takes the time to send me, hey, check this out, I'm checking it out. If it means that much to you and it makes you feel a certain way, then you know what, it's worth looking into. And I've been turned on to so much stuff like that.
Yeah. You got to be open. You got to, it's, I always ask people when they come in here to my chiropractic office, hey, what do you listen to? And usually people say, everything. And then I don't know, that's kind of a cop out sometimes. But I mean, it's about the country music. I feel the same way. I started, of course, I listened to all that shit back up on the mountain days, the local, fucking Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and all that shit. But now you have the merging of like, it's almost like country, beach country, country pop, all that shit. It's really good. Fucking Hootie fucking and the Blowfish there. That dude, he's very convincing on the countryside. Little Luke Combs.
Yeah, I haven't checked out too much of his stuff, but yeah, I mean, and I'm one of those people too, where I will see any any concert, I don't care who it is, just to experience it, because I feel like, and I've been turned on. I've been surprised and turned on to a lot of stuff just by just going and saying, okay, zero expectations, see what's going on here. There's a couple thousand people showing up to see this. It means something to them. See if I can tap into it,
Yeah. So are you a Swiftie?
I mean, I don't hate her. I think it's pretty wild, man.
Yeah.
Like she played a couple concerts here in Detroit over the summer, and my wife and I went downtown just to kind of see the hoopla. I mean, being a old school Grateful Dead guy, not to compare it, but as far as fans go, and legions of people going from place to place to see an artist, it's similar in that sense, but just completely different style of people. But it was fun, man. People were they're into it.
Yeah. I think it's great.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it live, even though like I don't care for the music so much, but I would just go just to see what it's all about. Like, what is it that's captivating all these people?
Yeah. It's very special. I know, and it's interesting to see what it does, like to the pop culture effect. People. It of course, like everything, it's always got to be a wedge. And most people really love her, and then there's some people, I can't believe Taylor Swift. I don't want to hear about her anymore. She's a phenom, man. She's a phenomenon. She's larger than life. It's pretty cool to see that. You don't always see that. Even some of her peers in the pop country world, like this has been her past couple of years, man. She's pretty cool. So I mean, I think she seems like a wholesome human being. Seems like she's got a positive message. I think we could use some of that. So I'll call myself a Swiftie. Fuck it, man. A couple of Swifties from Jersey. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, bro. Well, listen, man, I'm going to tell you, man, just in closing, everybody that I've had on this podcast is somebody that's, like I said earlier, somebody who's touched my life, somebody who's taught me something, somebody that I've shared time with. And so I know that we're gonna have a good banter, and the viewer will take it in and be able to learn something. Or I'm sure some of our classmates or people that know both of us will get on there and we'll talk about our little Pine Barren days and all that shit. It would be therapeutic for them. But really tremendous memories with you, man. I know that just having talked to you and spent a couple hours talking to you, which we've never done even in 30 years or more, it's going to bring us closer. So when we go out in early June to Holland, Michigan, I'm going to be text messaging you, and I'll try to convince you to come out and have another bite to eat. So I love you, man.
Won't take much. Love you too, bro.
Tell Tracy that I love her too, and it's great having reconnected with you. I want you to have the rest kick-ass weekend, bro.
Yeah, same to you. Happy Sunday, brother.
Thanks for coming. And